Hey everyone, welcome to People, Their Passion and Purpose. I'm here with Esther Brzezinski today. She is a content creator and actor. So that's very exciting. And I'm really excited to talk to you because you're very passionate about what you're doing. Your content is amazing. I love it. I love every time I see you up there, in Facebook, and I always go straight to you to see what you're going to say about
Oh, thank you for saying
content.
that.
Yes, I really do. And you've had a big shift in your life. So I think it's interesting to talk about that and to talk about, how you got into acting and your whole new you, right? Let's
Yeah, it
inspire
kind
some
of is.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Was definitely a big transition. Though I had always had an interest in acting throughout my life, but was never really encouraged to do so. But I would say about 6 years ago, I started taking some voiceover classes. Backstory, somebody came up to me at a party, said, "You have a great voice. Have you ever heard of voiceover?" I had no idea what he was talking about. Found some courses online, actually went to them in person. This was pre-COVID, and kind of fell in love with voiceover. And from there, realized that I needed some acting lessons and started pursuing that as well. And it was really just supposed to be kind of like a side hustle. I did have an accessory business at the time, and I was getting a little, it's time maybe to find something else to do. In the meantime, I will continue, and this voiceover work will be kind of my side hustle thing, and then eventually it sort of turned into my primary hustle.
Mm.
Of course, because of everything that was happening at the time. So 2019 is when I really got serious about doing voiceover and some acting, and started taking, like I said earlier, some acting classes. And then everything kind of shut down. So I had done some student films and I had done some voiceover work as well, but then everything sort of came to a standstill. Um, it's funny because I had, like I said earlier, I had always wanted to do it. I had always been discouraged. We were brought up at a time that, an actor was seen sort of from a negative perspective. Oh, they'll never earn money and it's a difficult life and we don't want that for you. My parents were immigrants. So for them, it was all about, working hard, getting educated, and, finding a profession. So, that sort of was never in the cards, even though it was something I desired. So it was definitely interesting when once everything was shut down, I no longer was doing the accessory business at all, which I had just been doing a bit of, and sort of focused on voice work and acting, and then got into podcasting.
Right.
So yeah, I did that for about a year and a half, and I had two podcasts. And
Nice.
Charlene, it's a lot of work, as you know.
Yes. I'm
A lot
still
of
trying, I'm figuring things out, but I'm getting I'm having a lot of awesome interviews, so I'm always appreciative. But yeah, it is a lot of work. Yeah.
it's a lot
So
of work, but fascinating. Like you
good.
say, you meet a lot of interesting people, and you learn a lot from them. So it was a great
It's
yeah, I enjoyed it very much, and then made the decision to, pursue more acting, etc. I also during that time period, and I was very interested in social media. I think we even met at a class, one of Mariella's
yeah.
classes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I took those classes for my accessory business to learn how to promote my business.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, so and then when I started doing a little bit of podcasting, I said, "Oh, I'm gonna, I'll put that content on my platforms and see what happens." And it was like, yeah, so so. And then I had been experiencing a bit of what I believe to be ageism in the entertainment industry,
Yeah.
and I sort of felt like I was sort of caught in between the fact that when they were looking for somebody in their 60s, I didn't look old enough. But if we looked at the 50s, I looked too old. So I somehow was falling through the cracks because I didn't look like their expectations of what they believed a 60-something-year-old should look like.
Mm.
So I spoke about it one day on TikTok and made this little transitional video. I mean, people think, I'm 64 at the time. This is what people think I should look like. And I put on an aging filter, but in fact, this is what I look like. And I showed what I looked like. and didn't think much of it. And a few hours later, I had like 150,000 views and I had like 70 followers. So it kind of went viral.
Yeah.
And that sort of began my journey into talking about ageism, positive aging, aging well. And
Yeah.
I talked about, I coined this phrase, which I had sort of heard somebody say something similar, that age is not my cage.
Right.
And that's sort of like my hashtag.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there was that as well. And this all happened in my 60s.
Yeah. I find it amazing how you know, the change happened. Like you were always interested in it, but you were, told not to do that and discouraged to do that, But now at this time in your life, something opened up for you and you were able to follow that passion, And I want to know a little bit more about how that felt for you deep inside, like when you were finally able to say to yourself, this, I've always wanted to do this. And so how did that feel for you?
Initially, the first thing that really struck me in taking classes was that I had found my people.
Mm,
Oh, I get it now. This is where I belong because I never quite fit in. I was always a little out there and a little bit, just outside the box in the way that I lived my life and my way of thinking, and
right.
even personality wise. So it was interesting that I had been in the fashion industry and I had, and with content creators as well. And yet, actors, fellow actors, teachers, except these were my people. So
Wow.
that was my initial feeling that I had sort of, gone home. And
Yeah.
this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I belong. And, you know, it's, it, it's not an easy venture in itself, and you have to deal with a lot of rejection, and and of course, starting at such an older age, there's your limitations with that as well. But no, it's once I'm in front of a camera, and it shocked me. Once I was, and it's more camera theater as opposed to theater rather that I prefer. I like being in front of a camera, so it would be more film, TV, etc. Yeah, once I was in front of a camera, it surprised me because I am really an introvert. And
Wow.
yet, and yet you put a camera in front of me and blah, 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 and yeah, so it's sort of like I came alive. So there's a lot going on inside. I've never really been totally able to express it all. And it's definitely been a wonderful outlet in that sense as well. And, on the other hand, being the age that I am, I have the advantage of a lot of life experience, and I do use that in my acting. So yeah, it's an adventure.
Yeah. So let's just go back for a second because that was something I wanted to ask you, like when you were talking about like the rejection.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that and we'll talk about the age thing, but first the rejection, like how did you or how do you get through that? Like do you have any tools that you use or what is it that you do to help yourself get through all that? That's hard.
That is hard. And I'm not going to lie, in the beginning, I would be devastated when I was first learning that, the trade and going through the process of being fortunate enough to get an audition. But then, that's it, just having the audition and never really getting the part. I was quite devastated at first. I didn't quite understand that, an audition in itself was a win. I did not realize that. I know that now. Um, it was quite difficult, and it was important for me to talk about it. I talk about it with other fellow actors who would explain to me, well, this is part of it. Rejection is part and parcel, so don't take it personally. It could be as simple as, you had the wrong hair color, you're the wrong height, or they've decided to go, with diversity instead. There's always other reasons as opposed to your own ability or your own talent. So
Okay.
this is something that I had to learn. So now I take it as, oh, they probably wanted somebody, tall and dark. So I tried to rationalize,
Right.
or it just wasn't for me, or
Right.
and also understanding the statistics of it, of how many people are applying, how many People are getting submitted versus how many people are asked to audition versus how many people get a callback versus how many people actually get the part. So it
Yes.
can start from 1,000 to 300 to 10 to 1. I mean, that's the progression. So then when you realize that, like, whoa, yeah, you're very, very, very lucky when you do get a part, and I am so appreciative when I do. And I get it, but I still get a little like, I still get a like, what did I do? Maybe I could have done that. But you do the best you can, and you just learn. Sometimes you just said something that wasn't quite what they were looking. The way you said it wasn't what they were looking for, and maybe they wanted you to be more innovative, and you were following the directions. I mean, there's thousands of reasons.
Yeah, there's so many things. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's nice that you had the support from, your community
Yes.
to help you, like you all kind of mentor each other and have to help each other through the experience.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. And even sometimes when you do get the part, I did have an experience where I got the part and I lost the job because I took too much upon myself. I literally had to learn a lot of lines in a very short period of time, and there were 8 scenes to be done in one day, which was unheard of. And I couldn't memorize it all. I just didn't. I wasn't able to. I needed more time, and that was another thing I had to learn was to understand how much I could handle,
Hmm.
and understanding that, yeah, in this case, age does kind of, because my co-star was 20 years younger, and it wasn't a problem. And for me it was like that was too much for me, and so I have to understand about pacing myself and how much I can take upon myself as well, and understand that I can't do those type of grueling shoots. It's too much. So I did have that experience where I basically got fired, because I just couldn't. Yeah, and I was devastated, and I wanted to leave, but I had already had 2 other things that I had committed to, and thank God that I did, because it gave me back the confidence afterwards. Like, oh yeah, I could do that. That was just too much, and now I have to understand. I have to learn to say no, which we all do in life, right? Learn to say no and learn to say yes. So in
Well,
that case, we'll learn to say no.
it's very inspiring because you continue to grow, you continue to learn, you continue to get to know yourself, you continue to get to know what you can do, what you can't do. And I'm sure sometimes that changes as well, along
Yeah.
with all the new, parts that you have to play or things that you have to do. So you've put yourself in a situation where it's uncomfortable a lot of the time, it sounds like.
Oh, yes. I recently did something where I was in a hot tub. Yeah, when it was very cold outside and the hot tub itself was very hot, and it was a night shoot. And yeah, so that was that was a bit challenging. I mean, it was fun, but it was very challenging. And there I realized the physicality of it was a bit more difficult for me because of my age.
Right.
It just, yeah, there was a difference. I had less tolerance. So again, I have to learn to pace myself and know how much I can do, and when to say yes and when to say no. But I mean, I'm happy I did it, but I did realize afterwards that physically it was extremely grueling, and yeah, that was a lot. But I'm looking actually forward to seeing how it looks on the screen.
So maybe you can give us a little bit of like background, like when you watch other movies and other actresses and seeing what they're doing in the movies and stuff, do you look at it differently now that you know and have had some experience with that, like being behind the camera?
I do look at it differently. I'm always in awe of those films where I get totally caught up in the story because it's so incredibly believable. And I realize how talented the actors are, that they are, in fact, acting, but it's so real. They're so natural that it's believable. And that is my goal, is to be believable. I
Right.
never want to look like I'm acting.
Yeah.
So I very much admire that. Yes, I do see that. And also understanding the work that a cinematographer does and what they do in the editing. I mean, there's an incredible amount of work. Even the sound guy, I mean, they have to be, extremely knowledgeable, top notch, professional. And it makes a huge difference. Every little detail, the
Mhm.
person who does the decor, the person who does the costumes, there's a lot that goes into it. So yes, I'm very much aware of all that as well.
And all the memorizing of the lines.
Oh my God. Yes, that is that's yeah, like I said, what happened to me where I took on, I don't do like 20 pages,
Yeah.
in a week and a half. That's I know, like, okay, I can't, it's difficult. When I had in that case, I had a lot of dialogue.
So,
Um,
what are some of the tips that you could share with some people that are listening to this podcast about memorizing lines or about anything that you feel has helped you along the way? Like just some tips about.
yeah, so I read, for instance, memorizing lines. So what I do, I read the script over several times, and then I literally go back to my university days where I make notes.
Okay.
Or I rewrite it and then I make notes. They're sort of like notes of notes.
Yeah.
And actually, the actual process of writing it down, I guess the physicality of it, it helps me a lot. So I do that, and I also I do it over and over and over again, but I also walk around and do it again. I need the physicality of it because if I just sit there and just say it to myself and, well, okay, I know it, I know it, and try to stand up and do it, and then when you're actually there, you're not only standing up, you might be doing, you might be fixing something in the kitchen, making a meal and having a conversation. So you have to learn how to coordinate knowing your lines, and also you're okay, now I go to the stove, now I take the pot, now I put it, take a ladle, I put, and I coordinating everything. So it takes a lot, but it is doable if I'm able to do it. Trust me, it's doable. um it's one of my coaches once said you need to say it 100 times, and that's not far from the truth. You do. You
Oh.
have to really devote a lot of time to that. So, and that, I mean, I know that I do. So,
Yeah. And that's good. That's okay. You got to know how to take care of the things you need to take care of, right?
yeah,
Um, so
absolutely.
do you continue your studies? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing to, improve or practice or?
So I've been taking a lot of workshops with Johnny Cortez. I've taken lots of classes at MSOPA. That's where I started with Josa. And also with Anik Matrin. I've taken classes with her as well, more for improv. And it's continuous. Yeah, I might take a few months off. If I'm doing some short films, which is mostly what I do, to me, that's like going to school,
Mhm.
being on set and learning, because I'm always learning. So being on set and just doing the film itself, I consider that, oh, it's like another workshop.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
another class for me.
you're practicing.
Yeah, I'm practicing.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, the word practicing, it's, either you feel like, okay, you're practicing how to do it, but on the other hand, it's a practice because you have to, you're doing it all the time. So it's like meditating, you're practicing. It's like dancing, you're practicing, it's a practice that you always do. So that's
It's
interesting.
definitely a practice. And regardless of how advanced you become, you always need to take classes and you always need to practice. It's not like, okay, I'm good now. I
Yeah.
need to take classes for the next 10 years. No, it's not like that. You have to continually, hone your craft.
Hmm. And in the class, I'm just wondering if there was anything specific that you learned about yourself that you can share with us, that, maybe when you were going deep or digging to get into that emotion, like, was there one thing that sort of surprised you that comes to mind that you'll always remember, feeling?
I took this one class where we had to present to actual casting directors. And one of the biggest ones in the city actually said to me after I did my scene that I was in my head. You're too in your head. And she goes, you're probably a very strong individual in everyday life, and you're probably always in control. But when it comes to doing this, you have to let go. but you're still controlling yourself, and you have to let go. And I was shocked. I was shocked because it was a scene where I get upset, and I thought for sure I had to let it all hang out, and I didn't. I was holding back a lot because I had done that all my life. Oh, appear strong. Strong for your children. Be strong for your parents. Be strong for your friends. So it was just second nature to me, and I didn't understand that it had actually found its way into my ability to act or not act. So that was something that I'll never forget when she told me that, yeah, I'm too inside my head. And that's what I've learned to not be, and to let go. So that was a major lesson.
Hard. I mean, it's scary to have to
It's
do that.
very scary.
Scary.
Yes, you'd be in a class and your coach or teacher will say, you got to let go. You need to cry. You need to cry. You need to feel the pain. Cry, this is what's happening. And oh my God, and your son is going to jail, or your daughter is ill, whatever the situation is. How does that feel? How would that make you feel? And you get pushed and pushed and pushed, and then or the anger or the crying. What I've discovered is I have an incredible amount of anger that I had no idea. Like therapy. I was like, who knew I could be this angry person? That the
Well,
rage would come
it's
out. Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because I was just thinking 3 seconds ago, like, you know, most, no, I'm not going to say most, many people like
Yeah.
don't want to go there. People,
Right.
we're so busy running away from our emotions, we don't really want to go there and look in the mirror and see what's actually there. And the fact that you're doing that, it's again, like I acknowledge you for that, it's
It's part of
quite
your,
amazing. Yeah.
it's like you have a toolbox as an
Yeah.
actor, and that's one of your tools is how do you get into your deep emotions. And I had once just sat in on a class in LA because that was sort of a dream of mine, and I sat in on this class, and there were actors there who were on sitcoms and TV series and very professional, and they were all made to cry and scream, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was the stories, they were the yelling, the crying. It was, but well, that's part of it. So yes, letting go. That
Yeah.
is probably the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. I can't imagine, but maybe I should try, Maybe I could
I
take a class one day for fun.
it's very cathartic,
Like,
just
yeah,
to say.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And I wonder if anyone gives these types of classes for people who just want to like learn how to express themselves. And that's interesting. I bet you there is. I bet you there is.
There, some of the ones that focus more on improv, that might be where to go, where you do sort of exercises and then you do a little bit of improv. And yeah, that would, so you don't have to worry about memorizing lines, and it's not about all that. It's
Exactly.
more about expressing yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would
Cool.
suggest that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so your content creation with your the ageism, age is not my cage, right? Age is not
Right,
my cage. I
right.
love that. Yeah, yeah. So you've been doing that for quite a while now.
2.5 years intensely, yes.
Yeah. Wow. So that's, and what has been the reaction from people? Do you
So,
get a lot of messages? Like, what are some of the messages that you've gotten?
so
Social,
it's
social media is so
it's
powerful.
been mostly positive. I do get a lot of messages from men which was interesting. This is the first thing I realized, and was on TikTok because that's where I first sort of exploded. And I would get a lot of messages and even comments from men who were over 50 and very lonely. Many had been divorced, or they lost their spouse, or, but just different situations where they just felt that they were, in search of someone, and how difficult it was. So and also how hard life had become in some ways. And then for other people, just the freedom that they felt. But it was mostly men who reached out and sort of wanted to talk about it with me, or admit that the content kind of helped them. So that was interesting, that it was more men than women. um you know I, for some women, yes, I was asked certain questions, more like, oh, what do you use on your skin, or
Okay.
how was menopause for you, and stuff like that. but it wasn't about like, oh, I appreciate what you're saying, it really helps me. I get that mostly from, the male audience, so that's very fascinating, and
Yeah.
I can't explain why, but
Yeah.
it's been good in that, yeah, I started having brands reaching out, which was never my intention, but then it sort of was like, a light bulb went off and I went, oh, I could sort of earn a little bit of a living doing this. So I then sort of focused on that as well. So yeah, I do. I have brands who reach out and I do a bit of sponsoring. I do mostly what they call user generated content, where I do content for brands for their social media or for their websites, which I actually really enjoy. And the other thing is that I had to learn to be a videographer and an editor and all that stuff. I mean, it's not just about taking, film of yourself. It's like how you put it together, present it, the music, etc., captions. So there was a lot of learning in that as well. But yeah, it's been quite the adventure, to say the least.
Yeah. Wow. Your life has changed dramatically in this time of your life. It's amazing. So, and you've,
Yeah,
you
it
made
has,
it
and
vibrant and go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, no, no, I'm just I sometimes say to myself, "Oh, just why didn't I do this 10 years ago, 15 years ago?" But maybe I just wasn't ready. I do have to backtrack and say some of what happened in terms of acting and my decision to really just go for it had to do with having an illness at the end of 2020, which was not COVID,
Mhm.
and sort of like getting out of that and finding out everything was okay because it had the potential of being very serious, made me feel like I had a new lease on life. And that was another reason why I just sort of said, F it. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to get an agent. I'm going to get headshots. I'm going to, so I went for it because of the thought that, that I could have, ceased to exist. And now I have a second chance. So that was a very important piece of information that I have to throw in there. That
Yes.
made a difference.
Yeah, that's very important for sure. Part of why you changed or how you changed. It's too bad that we have to sort of go through that. Like we're reminded about it so many times from other people and things we
Yeah.
watch and things we see and things we read. But until it really happens to yourself, you you're, I don't know, you're too scared to take that leap, or worried, or you have a lot of fear or insecurity, whatever it is. So yeah, and you did it, so that's just amazing. That's
Throw
great.
caution to the wind. That's what I say. I think that, being a little bit of an ADD type of personality, um, in that sense, is that I don't overthink it. I just go for it.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
I did overthink it, I would find 10 reasons like on the spot of, you shouldn't do that. Don't do that. You're going to look stupid. Oh my God, what are you doing? But
Right.
I don't care. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So, I didn't never cared that much, and I certainly don't care that much anymore. And like I said, I'm sort of an introvert extrovert where I'm very happy to be alone in real life, but this other side of me, I guess, needed an outlet. So,
Yeah.
it was that part as well. So, yeah.
Well, I'm really happy that you found this new life of yours, and you found this new outlet and this new talent and all these new things that you love to do, because, personally, I always like to see you out there on social media, like I said before. And I find that it's very comforting, and you have a very warm demeanor to you, and you care, and you want people to know what you're experiencing, and you're building a brand. You really, I think you are. I think you're really building a brand, and there's a purpose to it. And there's your purpose and what you're giving to other people, and you are giving them that insight into reminding us, like, to just keep going, reminding us, that yes, we get older, it's part of life, and what we can do with that, and how great it can be, and what we can make with it, so I just wanted to give you that feedback.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. And then we're gonna have to get off in a couple of minutes, but just to, wrap things up, what would you like to leave the audience with in terms of maybe something to help people continue what they're doing, even if, they're having a hard time, or, what wakes you up in the morning to get you out of bed and gets you excited, something like that would be really nice to hear from you.
One of the biggest things that I've learned is about doing it scared. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned.
Yeah.
That yeah, if I know that I have to go and let's say perform on a shoot, and I'm really feeling nervous, and I feel like I almost feel like backing out. It's like, oh, maybe I'll pretend I'm sick, and like when we were in grade school.
Yeah.
But I forced myself to do it scared, because if it were easy, it wouldn't be worth its while, because if it's difficult, then it's definitely worth trying and worth doing. And what is the worst thing that could happen? Is that you can fail. So what? So you failed. I have failed many times, literally gotten fired,
Yeah.
and just decided, okay, that was horrible. I'm going to do it again, because, I don't have time to waste. Maybe that's the gift of aging. I'm
Yeah.
aware that I don't have time to waste.
Yeah.
So I may be terrified, to do something. And I might think that sometimes I'm like, well, I must be out of my mind to put myself out there. But it's for myself, it's something that I have to do. And even if I'm terrified, I'm going to do it. And
Yeah.
that's a big lesson, is do it scared.
That's a great big nugget for
Yeah.
us. That's for sure. And I'm going to remember that. And I hope everybody listens to this and remembers that for sure. That's great. So, I mean, thank you again for your time and for
My
coming on
pleasure.
my
Thank you
show.
for having me.
And you never know, maybe if things change and you have more to talk about, you just give me a call and we'll get back on and we'll share more, because I think it's important
Sure.
for people to hear from, all different kinds of people in all different kinds of fields, for inspiration and ideas, and just like that feeling of doing something that you love to do, so it's important to bring that to the world. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm glad that you're doing that, that you have this format, this platform to bring that to people, because it is important, and I appreciate you having
Thank
me.
thank you so much. So
Yeah.
everyone, thank you again for listening to my podcast, People, Their Passion and Purpose. Today we were with Esther Brzezinski talking about her content creation and acting career. And I want you all to have a beautiful day, and thanks again. Take care.